Wake her, and you will answer to me." The warning came quietly, which somehow made every person in the royal chamber freeze where they stood. Dawn had barely touched Blackwood Citadel, leaving the tall windows washed in pale gray and the dying fire glowing softly beneath the stone mantle. 12 members of the royal council stood near the doorway, prepared for an emergency war meeting, yet not one of them dared take another step. Their Alpha King was seated in a broad leather chair beside the fireplace, his dark shirt rumpled, one sleeve marked by the evidence of a long and difficult night. But that was not what had stolen the room's breath. Curled against King Nathaniel Blackwood's chest was a young woman wearing the simple gray uniform of a palace maid. Emily Carter, an Omega. Her cheek rested above his heart, as if she belonged there, one hand loosely holding the edge of his shirt while she slept with the deep exhaustion of someone who had finally reached safety after running for miles. Nathaniel's arm rested around her shoulders, not possessively, but protectively, forming a barrier no one in the room seemed willing to test. Margaret Voss, the head maid, stared as though the laws of the kingdom had been rewritten overnight. "Your Majesty," she whispered. Nathaniel did not answer. His eyes remained closed. For one uncertain moment, Margaret seemed to believe he was still asleep. She gathered her courage and moved forward, her polished shoes making a single sharp sound against the stone floor. Emily stirred faintly. Nathaniel's arm tightened around her. Margaret stopped. "The girl should not be here," she said, lowering her voice. "The council has arrived, and she has duties below stairs. I will remove her without disturbing you." She reached toward Emily's shoulder. Nathaniel's eyes opened, silver gray and completely awake. Margaret's hand stopped in midair. The room became so silent that the soft crackle of the fireplace sounded enormous. Nathaniel looked first at her hand, then slowly at her face. "Wake the Omega Maid on my chest," he said, his voice calm enough to chill the room. "And you die." No one moved. Emily slept through every word. She had no idea that generals who had faced armies were now afraid to breathe too loudly because of her. She did not see Margaret step backward, or the council members exchange stunned looks. She did not know that the Alpha King who allowed no one near him had spent the entire night refusing to let anyone carry her away. She only heard the steady heartbeat beneath her ear, and somewhere inside her sleep, she held his shirt a little tighter. Nathaniel noticed. Something unreadable crossed his face before his gaze returned to the people waiting at the door. "The meeting can wait." That sentence shocked them almost as much as the first. Nathaniel Blackwood had never postponed matters of the kingdom for anyone. Yet now he sat perfectly still because an unknown Omega Maid was sleeping against him. None of them understood what had happened inside this chamber during the night. 12 hours earlier, Emily Carter had been nothing more than another invisible servant walking the cold corridors of Blackwood Citadel with her eyes lowered and her hands folded neatly before her. 12 hours earlier, the Alpha King had not even known her name. And 12 hours earlier, Emily had heard something no one else in the entire fortress could hear. A heartbeat somewhere above her, hidden behind a forbidden door, growing slower with every passing second. Emily Carter had learned that invisibility was not a gift. It was a skill, and Blackwood Citadel had given her 3 years to master it. Keep her footsteps quiet. Keep her eyes lowered when nobles passed. Carry the silver trays without letting the crystal glasses touch. Speak only when spoken to. Most importantly, never give anyone a reason to remember the Omega Maid with the quiet voice and the wolf that had never fully awakened. At 22, Emily knew every hidden staircase in the enormous fortress, every draft that slipped beneath the ancient doors, and every corridor where servants could disappear before members of the royal court noticed them. That afternoon, she moved through the western gallery carrying freshly folded linens against her chest, while cold rain tapped against windows nearly 15 feet tall. The castle felt different. Too quiet. Royal guards stood at intersections normally left empty, their dark uniforms damp from the storm outside. Servants whispered behind kitchen doors, stopping whenever footsteps approached. Something had happened, but people like Emily were expected to know nothing until they were ordered to clean up afterward. "Carter." Margaret Voss's voice stopped her near the servants' staircase. Emily turned immediately. "Yes, Mrs. Voss." Margaret looked her over with the familiar disappointment of someone inspecting a stain that refused to disappear. The East Wing needs additional hands tonight. You will remain below the second floor. Emily nodded. Of course. You will not enter the royal corridor. Another nod. Yes, Mrs. Voss. Margaret stepped closer. And if you hear anything unusual, you heard nothing. That made Emily look up before she could stop herself. Margaret's expression hardened. Emily lowered her gaze again. I understand. See that you do. Margaret walked away, leaving behind the faint scent of lavender soap and something sharper beneath it. Fear. Emily stood still for a moment. She had always been unusually sensitive to emotion, although no healer had ever explained why. Fear sometimes felt like cold water against her skin. Grief settled behind her ribs. Pain was worse. Other people's suffering could arrive inside her body as suddenly as a storm, leaving her breathless even when she had no wound of her own. Her mother had once called it kindness with nowhere to go. The pack that raised Emily had called it another useless Omega weakness. Blackwood Citadel simply ignored it because Blackwood Citadel ignored Emily. Usually, she preferred it that way. She continued downstairs and spent the next several hours carrying linens, polishing serving pieces, and helping prepare a meal no one seemed interested in eating. By sunset, rumors had begun slipping through the servants' quarters. The Alpha King had returned unexpectedly. His arrival had been kept secret. No bells had announced him. No royal banners had been raised. Emily tried not to listen. King Nathaniel Blackwood belonged to a world far above hers. She had seen him only twice from a distance, both times surrounded by guards and council members. Yet as darkness settled over the fortress, Emily suddenly dropped the cup she was drying. It struck the carpet without breaking. Her hand flew to her chest. A crushing ache had appeared beneath her ribs. She could not breathe for 3 terrible seconds. Then came something stranger. A heartbeat. Not hers. Slow. Heavy. Fading. Emily turned toward the ceiling. Somewhere several floors above her, beyond the staircase she had been forbidden to climb, someone was in pain. And somehow, she could feel every second of it. The heartbeat came again, so faint that Emily almost convinced herself she had imagined it. She pressed one hand against the edge of the servants' table and waited. Her own pulse hurried beneath her fingertips, but the other rhythm remained separate, distant, and strangely familiar. One beat. A pause. Another. Then pain rolled through her chest with enough force to steal her breath. Emily. A kitchen maid named Clara glanced toward her. Are you sick? Emily straightened before anyone else could notice. I am fine. Just tired. Clara gave her a doubtful look, but the dinner rush demanded attention, and within seconds she was gone. Emily picked up the cup from the carpet and placed it carefully beside the others. She told herself to return to work. She had been given a direct order. The royal corridor was forbidden tonight. Whatever was happening upstairs belonged to healers, guards, and people whose names mattered. Not to her. Yet the strange heartbeat followed her everywhere. It weakened while she carried dishes. It stumbled while she folded napkins. Each time it slowed, a cold pressure settled beneath her ribs. By 8 o'clock, the entire eastern side of Blackwood Citadel had become unnaturally silent. More guards appeared near the staircases. A royal physician hurried through the lower hall carrying a leather case, followed by 2 assistants. 20 minutes later, the same physician returned alone. His face had lost all color. Emily watched him disappear through the courtyard doors without speaking to anyone. That was when she understood the fear she had sensed earlier. Someone important was suffering. Someone powerful enough that an entire fortress had been ordered to pretend nothing was wrong. Far above the servants' quarters, behind 3 guarded doors, King Nathaniel Blackwood sat alone in his private chamber. His return from the northern border had been deliberately hidden because a wounded king invited questions, and questions invited enemies. The official story said Nathaniel was still traveling. The truth was locked inside the royal wing with him. During his journey home, an old curse tied to moon silver had awakened inside his body. The royal healers had tried everything they knew, but ordinary medicine could not quiet what had begun stirring within his wolf. Nathaniel had dismissed them before fear could make them careless. He had also given his guards one command. No one was to enter his chamber until morning, regardless of what they heard. He knew what happened when pain overwhelmed his control. He would rather endure the night alone than frighten someone who had only tried to help him. Downstairs, Emily knew none of this. She knew only that the heartbeat was growing weaker. At 9:15, Margaret found her standing at the bottom of the eastern staircase. "What are you doing?" Emily stepped backward. "Nothing." Margaret followed her gaze toward the upper floors, and something nervous flashed across her face. "You were told to stay below the second floor. Someone is hurt." The words escaped before Emily could stop them. Margaret became perfectly still. "You know nothing about what is happening upstairs." Emily swallowed. "I can feel it." For a moment, Margaret simply stared at her. Then her expression hardened. "You are an Omega Maid, Emily Carter. Whatever you think you feel, remember your place." She turned away. Emily lowered her head, but the heartbeat sounded again inside her chest. Slower now. Much slower. And for the first time in 3 years, Emily looked at a forbidden staircase and decided that knowing her place did not mean allowing someone to suffer alone. Emily waited until Margaret disappeared beyond the kitchen doors before she moved. The sensible part of her mind told her to turn around. Losing her position at Blackwood Citadel would leave her with nowhere to go, and servants had been dismissed for far smaller acts of disobedience. She had $12 hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her room, 2 plain dresses, and no family waiting beyond the castle gates. Her place here was small, but it was still a place. Then the distant heartbeat faltered again. Emily gripped the wooden railing. The pain that followed was quieter than before, and somehow that frightened her more. She climbed the first staircase. The lower halls were busy enough that no one noticed another gray uniform passing between shadows. On the second floor, the noise faded. By the third, even the air seemed different. The familiar smells of bread, soap, and burning would disappear beneath cold stone and rain drifting through narrow windows. Emily had never been this high inside the Eastern Tower. Servants were summoned here only when necessary, and Omega Maids almost never came at all. She reached the first guarded corridor and stopped. 2 royal guards stood beneath a brass lantern. "Servants are restricted below this floor tonight," one said. Emily lowered her eyes. "Mrs. Voss sent me to check the guest rooms in the West Passage." The lie made heat rise into her face. The guards exchanged an impatient glance. "Wrong staircase. Go back 1 level and take the North Hall." "Thank you." Emily turned obediently, waited until the stone wall hid her from view, then slipped through a narrow service passage she remembered from carrying winter blankets months earlier. The corridor was barely 3 feet wide, built generations ago so servants could move unseen behind the royal rooms. Dust softened her footsteps. With every step upward, the second heartbeat became clearer. She no longer needed to guess where it came from. It pulled at her like an invisible thread. When she finally emerged behind a tapestry on the 4th floor, Emily found herself less than 30 feet from the royal chambers. 6 guards stood outside a pair of dark wooden doors. No one spoke. No one looked comfortable. Then a low sound came from somewhere beyond them. Emily froze. It was not anger she felt. It was suffering. Deep, exhausted, carefully contained suffering. One guard glanced toward the doors and immediately looked away. "How long has he been alone?" another whispered. Those were his orders. "And if he gets worse?" No one answered. Emily pressed herself against the wall behind the tapestry, her chest tightening. The heartbeat weakened again. She could feel the loneliness inside it now, a vast emptiness hidden beneath layers of discipline and command. Whoever was behind those doors had spent hours forcing everyone away. A minute later, an officer arrived and ordered 3 guards to reinforce the western entrance. The remaining men turned their attention toward him. Emily saw her chance. She slipped back into the service passage and followed it around the chamber wall until she found a narrow servant's door concealed behind carved paneling. Her hand closed around the handle. "Do not," she whispered to herself. Then the pain struck again. Emily opened the door. The room beyond was almost dark. A fire burned low near the far wall, and beside the tall windows stood a man with both hands braced against a heavy table, his breathing uneven. Emily recognized him immediately. King Nathaniel Blackwood slowly raised his head. His silver-gray eyes found hers across the darkness. "You should not be here," he said. Emily could barely hear her own answer over the heartbeat trembling inside her chest. "I know." For several seconds, neither of them moved. Emily stood with one hand still resting on the hidden door while Nathaniel watched her from across the chamber. In every distant glimpse she had ever caught of the Alpha King, he had seemed carved from certainty. a man whose presence made crowded halls fall silent before he spoke. Tonight, that certainty looked stretched thin. His dark hair was damp from the rain, his shoulders rigid beneath a simple black shirt, and his face carried the exhausted concentration of someone holding back something no one else could see. "Leave," Nathaniel said. The word was quiet, but the command inside it pressed against the room. Emily should have obeyed. Every instinct built by years of keeping her head down told her to step backward, close the door, and forget what she had seen. Instead, the second heartbeat stumbled inside her chest. Nathaniel's hand tightened against the table. Emily felt the answer in her own body, a cold ache spreading beneath her ribs. "You are hurt." His eyes sharpened. "That is not your concern." "I know." "Then why are you still standing there?" Emily had no good answer. Because she could feel his pain sounded impossible. Because leaving him alone felt wrong sounded dangerously familiar to the kind of kindness people had always mocked her for. She took one careful step forward. Nathaniel immediately straightened. "Stop." Emily stopped. The fire shifted behind him, and for the first time she noticed the faint silver-black shimmer near his left side, visible through a tear in the fabric of his shirt. It was no ordinary injury. The strange metal seemed to catch light that was not there, and the moment Emily focused on it, the pressure in her chest intensified. "There is something there," she whispered. Nathaniel glanced down, then back at her. "The royal physicians already know." "Did they remove it?" Silence answered her. Emily looked toward a small table near the fireplace. Clean cloths, glass bottles, and several silver instruments had been abandoned there. The physicians had tried. Whatever they had found, they had not been able to finish. "You sent them away," she said. "I ordered you to leave." "That is not the same answer." Nathaniel stared at her as though no servant had ever spoken to him that way. Emily almost apologized. Then another wave of pain moved through her, and she saw his breathing change at exactly the same moment. Her fear remained, but something else became stronger. Understanding. "I can feel it," she said softly. Nathaniel went completely still. "Feel what?" Emily touched the center of her chest. "Your heartbeat." The fire cracked behind them. Nathaniel's expression changed, not into belief, but into something more guarded. "You do not know what you are saying." "Maybe not. But I knew someone was suffering from 3 floors below. I followed it here." She took another careful step. This time, he did not stop her immediately. "What is your name?" he asked. The question surprised her. "Emily Carter." He repeated it once, almost under his breath, as though placing the name somewhere in his memory. Then his jaw tightened, and the strange silver-black light flickered again. Emily felt the heartbeat falter. Nathaniel closed his eyes. "Emily Carter," he said, his voice suddenly strained. "You need to run." She looked at the man everyone feared, standing alone because he was more afraid of frightening others than of facing his own pain. Her hand fell from her chest. "No," she whispered, and she stepped toward him. Emily had taken only 2 steps when Nathaniel moved away from the table. The motion was sudden enough to stop her, but he did not come toward her. Instead, he turned sharply toward the fireplace and gripped the stone mantel as if distance itself were the only protection he could offer. "I said run." His voice had changed. It was lower now, roughened by exhaustion, yet Emily heard something beneath the command that surprised her. Fear. Not fear for himself. Fear for her. "I am not going to hurt you," she said carefully. A humorless breath escaped him. "That is not what concerns me." Emily watched his shoulders tighten. The strange pressure inside her chest rose and fell with his breathing, making it impossible to pretend they were strangers separated by rank and circumstance. Whatever connected her to his pain had grown stronger since she entered the chamber. She could feel every uneven beat as clearly as footsteps approaching through an empty hall. "What happens if I stay?" she asked. Nathaniel looked over his shoulder. For an instant, his silver-gray eyes seemed almost brighter in the dim room. "I do not know." It was the first truly uncertain thing she had ever heard attributed to King Nathaniel Blackwood. Emily glanced toward the abandoned medical table. The physicians were afraid. They were sensible. "Were you afraid of them?" "No." "Then why did you send them away?" Nathaniel said nothing. Emily understood anyway. The physicians had not been the danger. He had, or at least he believed he was. She looked again at the unusual shimmer near his side. The silver-black fragment seemed no larger than a small coin, but something about it felt wrong. Cold radiated from it, even across several feet of space. That is what is causing this, she said. It is moon silver. Nathaniel's gaze narrowed. You know about it? Only stories. Every child raised among wolves knew those stories. Moon silver was rare, ancient, and unpredictable around shifter magic. Emily had always assumed most of the warnings were meant to frighten children away from forbidden places. Standing here, she no longer believed that. The physicians could not touch it for long, Nathaniel said. The curse reacts to fear. Emily swallowed. I am afraid. I noticed. Despite everything, there was the faintest trace of dry amusement in his voice. It disappeared almost immediately when another wave of pain passed through him. Emily felt it at the same moment. Her knees nearly weakened, but she remained standing. Nathaniel saw her reaction. You truly can feel it. Yes. Something shifted in his expression. Suspicion remained, but now there was wonder beside it. Emily crossed the remaining distance to the medical table and examined the instruments without touching them. Tell me what the physicians tried. Emily, please. Nathaniel stared at her. You are a maid. The words should have embarrassed her. Instead, she nodded. Yes. You have no medical training. No. And you walked into a forbidden royal chamber after being ordered to stay away. Emily considered that. Also yes. For the first time, Nathaniel almost smiled. It lasted less than a second. Then the fire dimmed, and the room seemed to tighten around them. Nathaniel's breathing changed. His fingers pressed harder against the mantle. Emily felt something restless moving beneath the pain, something powerful struggling against years of discipline. She understood why the guards were outside. She understood why the physicians had left. Still, she walked toward him. Do not come closer, Nathaniel warned. Emily stopped within 3 feet of him. She could see now how exhausted he truly was. You told everyone to leave because you were protecting them. His eyes met hers. You should let me protect you too. Emily's heart hammered, but her voice remained soft. Then protect me by letting me help. Nathaniel stared at her for one long second. Then the pain surged, his control slipped, and a deep warning sound filled the chamber. Emily did not run. She lifted her trembling hand toward him. Emily's hand trembled in the narrow space between them. Every sensible instinct told her to lower it, yet the pain flowing through that invisible connection had become impossible to ignore. Nathaniel stood rigid beside the fireplace, fighting for control with every measured breath. The warning sound faded from his throat, replaced by a silence that felt even more dangerous. Emily, he said carefully, lower your hand. She should have listened. Instead, she looked into his eyes and saw no cruelty there, only exhaustion. I know it hurts, she whispered. Her fingertips touched his cheek. The world seemed to stop. Nathaniel froze. Emily forgot how to breathe. The restless pressure filling the chamber vanished so suddenly that the quiet rang in her ears. Beneath her palm, his skin was warm, but the unnatural cold inside her chest began to ease. Nathaniel stared at her as though she had done something impossible. Perhaps she had. What did you do? His voice was barely above a whisper. Nothing. Emily started to pull her hand away. His eyes followed the movement, and the tension returned instantly to his shoulders. She stopped. Do not move, he said. Emily blinked. You just told me to run. I have changed my mind. Under any other circumstances, the answer might have made her smile. Tonight, she only watched him carefully. Nathaniel closed his eyes for several seconds, testing the silence inside himself. When he opened them again, disbelief had replaced some of the strain. My wolf is quiet. Emily had never heard anyone speak those words with such wonder. Is that unusual? For me. He looked toward the dark windows. Rain moved in silver lines across the glass. Very. Emily kept her hand where it was, although her arm was beginning to ache. How long? Nathaniel hesitated. 12 years. The answer settled heavily between them. 12 years of carrying something no one could see. 12 years of power, ceremony, and command while an unseen storm followed him everywhere. Emily suddenly understood the locked doors, the guards, the empty room. That sounds lonely, she said. Nathaniel looked at her again. Kings probably heard many things from the people around them. Praise. Agreement. Fear disguised as respect. Emily doubted anyone often called them lonely. You speak strangely for someone who works in my household, he said. I am usually much better at staying quiet. I find that difficult to believe. This time, the faintest smile actually reached his face. Then Emily felt the second heartbeat stumble. Her attention snapped toward the moon-silver fragment. It is still there. Nathaniel's expression hardened again. Your touch quiets the curse. It does not remove its source. Emily slowly lowered her hand from his face. The moment contact ended, the pressure returned, though less violently than before. Nathaniel drew a careful breath. Emily moved toward the medical table. Then we remove it. The physicians tried. They could not calm the curse while they worked. She looked back at him. Maybe I can. Nathaniel studied her for a long moment. And what happens to you if you cannot? Emily had no answer. She looked at the instruments, then at her own hands. She had spent years believing they were useful only for carrying trays, folding sheets, and cleaning rooms that powerful people occupied. Tonight, those same hands had done what trained physicians could not. She picked up a clean cloth. Sit down, she said. One dark eyebrow lifted. Emily immediately remembered whom she was speaking to. Please, Your Majesty. Nathaniel surprised her by obeying. He lowered himself into the chair beside the fire, never taking his eyes from her. Emily stepped closer, holding the cloth with both hands to hide their trembling. If this becomes too much, Nathaniel said, you leave immediately. Emily nodded. And if you tell me to run again? This time, you listen. She met his gaze. We will see. Something almost amused flickered across his face, but it vanished when Emily placed one steadying hand against his shoulder. The second heartbeat slowed beneath her senses. The room became quiet again. Then Emily reached toward the moon silver, and the cold inside her chest opened like a door. The cold reached Emily before her fingers reached the moon silver. It moved through her like winter air slipping beneath a locked door, sharp enough to make her pause. Nathaniel noticed immediately. Stop. Emily kept one hand against his shoulder and forced herself to breathe slowly. I am all right. You are shaking. I was shaking before. That is not reassuring. Despite the tension, his dry reply steadied her. Emily looked at the small fragment catching the firelight. Up close, it seemed almost ordinary, no larger than the tip of her little finger, yet every instinct warned her that the metal carried something far heavier than its size. She reached for the silver instrument the physicians had left behind. The moment she lifted it, Nathaniel's heartbeat changed beneath her senses. Look at me, she said. His gaze rose to hers. Emily almost lost her courage. This was the Alpha King, the man whose name could silence an entire hall. Yet now he was trusting an Omega Maid he had met less than an hour ago. Keep listening to my voice, she whispered. Tell me something. About what? Anything. Nathaniel considered her request, as if it were a matter before the royal council. I dislike cinnamon. Emily blinked. That is what you chose. You asked for anything. A nervous laugh escaped her before she could stop it. The sound felt strangely bright inside the dark chamber. Nathaniel's expression softened for half a second. His heartbeat steadied. Emily focused again. What else? I prefer winter to summer. Why? Fewer ceremonies. That sounds like a very royal problem. You are becoming unusually bold, Emily Carter. You told me to keep you talking. I believe you told me. She almost smiled. Then the instrument touched the moon silver, and every trace of humor disappeared. Cold rushed through Emily's arm. She tightened her hand against Nathaniel's shoulder, and his breathing became uneven. Stay with me, she said, though she was no longer certain which of them needed the words more. The fragment resisted at first, as though the strange energy around it refused to release its hold. Emily concentrated on the second heartbeat. She imagined wrapping it in the same quiet warmth she had once used to calm frightened animals during thunderstorms. Slowly, impossibly, the pressure eased. Nathaniel stared at her. Your eyes, he murmured. What about them? They changed. Emily had no time to ask what he meant. The moon silver suddenly came free. She caught it in the folded cloth and dropped both onto the metal tray. The small fragment landed with a clear ringing sound. Silence followed. Nathaniel drew one deep breath. Then another. The crushing presence Emily had felt since downstairs vanished from his heartbeat. Relief flooded her so quickly that her knees weakened. Nathaniel rose at once and caught her by the arms before she could fall. Emily. She tried to answer, but the room tilted. The pain was gone from him. She was certain of that. Yet a strange cold remained inside her own chest. Before either of them could understand why, the main chamber doors opened. Guards rushed inside, followed by Margaret and the royal physician. Everyone stopped. Emily stood unsteadily beside the Alpha King, her hands trembling, the dark piece of moon silver resting on the tray behind her. Margaret's eyes widened. What has she done? Two guards immediately moved toward Emily. Wait, Nathaniel ordered, but exhaustion weakened the command for one critical second. A guard reached for Emily's arm and pulled her away from him. The instant their contact broke, Nathaniel's eyes flashed silver. His hand closed around Emily's wrist before anyone could take another step. The entire room froze. Nathaniel drew her back to his side, his breathing suddenly calm again. The royal physician stared at their joined hands. Then he looked at the moon silver on the tray. Your Majesty, he whispered, disbelief filling his voice. The curse did not disappear. Emily felt the cold inside her chest deepen. The physician slowly turned toward her. It moved. It moved where? Nathaniel's voice was quiet, but every person in the chamber heard the command beneath the question. The royal physician looked at Emily, then at the moon silver fragment resting harmlessly on the tray. I cannot be certain, Your Majesty. You just said it moved. The fragment carried the curse, but the metal was only its anchor. When Miss Carter removed it, the connection should have broken. The physician swallowed. Instead, the energy followed the strongest living connection available. Emily barely heard the final words. The cold beneath her ribs had become heavier, spreading through her in slow waves that left her strangely tired. Nathaniel still held her wrist. His touch was warm against her chilled skin, and she realized with growing confusion that the cold weakened wherever their hands met. Margaret stepped forward. This is exactly why servants are forbidden from interfering in royal matters. She disobeyed direct orders and entered the king's chamber without permission. Emily lowered her eyes automatically. 3 years of habit were stronger than one extraordinary night. I am sorry. Nathaniel turned toward her. For what? Emily hesitated. For entering your chamber. You saved my life. The room went silent. Margaret's expression tightened. Your Majesty, we do not know what she did. An Omega with an unexplained ability appears in a restricted room, and suddenly an ancient curse changes hosts. At minimum, she should be questioned. One of the guards moved closer. Nathaniel's grip on Emily's wrist tightened slightly. The reaction was immediate. Something restless stirred inside the room, not threatening, but powerful enough that everyone noticed. The guard stopped. Emily looked at Nathaniel. Please. His eyes met hers. Please what? They are only doing their jobs. And you are defending them? I do not want anyone punished because of me. Nathaniel studied her as if she had spoken in a language he had forgotten. Then Emily's knees weakened again. This time, Nathaniel caught her before she reached the floor. The movement brought her against his chest, and the cold inside her eased almost instantly. Emily drew a startled breath. The royal physician stepped closer, careful not to touch her. There. Did you see that? Nathaniel looked down at Emily. Explain. The curse is reacting to separation. The physician's disbelief gave way to concentration. When she touches you, it becomes quiet. Margaret shook her head. That is impossible. So was removing the moon silver. The physician looked between them. Yet she did it. Emily tried to straighten. I can stand. Nathaniel released her slowly. The moment his hand left her arm, cold pressure returned beneath her ribs. Her breath caught. Nathaniel immediately placed his hand against her shoulder. Warmth returned. No one spoke. Emily stared at him. He stared back. That is inconvenient, she whispered. To her surprise, Nathaniel almost smiled. You have a talent for understatement. The physician cleared his throat. Until I understand this connection, I recommend that Miss Carter remain near you. Margaret's face changed. She has duties. Nathaniel looked at her. Not anymore. Emily's heart stumbled for an entirely different reason. Your Majesty, I cannot simply stop being a maid. Apparently you can. Exhaustion finally reached Nathaniel's voice. The long night had taken more from him than he wanted anyone to know. Emily could feel it now that the pain no longer hid everything else. She felt the weight behind his heartbeat, the years without rest, the constant vigilance. You need to sit down, she said. The council of guards and servants watched in astonishment as their king obeyed an Omega Maid for the second time that night. Nathaniel lowered himself into the chair beside the fireplace. Emily remained standing beside him until the cold returned. Without opening his eyes, he held out one hand. She hesitated, then placed hers in it. The cold disappeared. Minutes passed. The physician continued speaking softly with the guards, but Emily heard less and less. Her body felt impossibly heavy. Nathaniel's breathing gradually became slow and even. For the first time in 12 years, the Alpha King had fallen asleep without fighting his own wolf. Emily sat carefully on the edge of the chair beside him, intending to rest for only a moment. Nathaniel shifted in his sleep, his arms settling protectively around her shoulders. Emily's eyes closed. Neither of them noticed when her head came to rest against his chest. Neither heard the physician quietly order everyone from the room. And neither knew that by sunrise, the most powerful people in the kingdom would walk through those doors and find them still sleeping exactly that way. For the first time in 12 years, Nathaniel Blackwood dreamed of nothing. No restless shadows followed him through endless corridors. No invisible weight dragged him back toward wakefulness. There was only warmth, silence, and the soft rhythm of another heartbeat resting close to his own. Hours passed without his knowing. Outside the tall windows, the storm moved east, leaving Blackwood's citadel beneath a pale winter sky. The first light of dawn entered the chamber slowly, touching the stone walls, the abandoned medical instruments, and the small piece of moon-silver sealed beneath a glass cover on the far table. Nathaniel woke before Emily. His eyes opened with the immediate awareness of a man trained never to wake carelessly. For several seconds, he remained completely still. Something was different. The constant tension inside his wolf was gone. Not weakened. Gone. Then he looked down. Emily Carter was asleep against his chest. Her gray servant uniform was wrinkled from the long night, and one of her hands had closed loosely around the edge of his shirt. Her breathing was quiet, peaceful. Nathaniel should have moved her. He should have summoned the physician, called his guards, and demanded answers about the impossible connection between them. Instead, he sat there listening to her breathe. The moment he considered waking her, his wolf stirred with immediate refusal. Nathaniel frowned. Interesting, he murmured. Emily shifted slightly, but did not wake. Her head settled more comfortably against him, and the wolf became quiet again. Nathaniel stared toward the dying fire. For 12 years, healers had offered medicines. Scholars had searched ancient records. Priests had performed ceremonies that accomplished nothing except exhausting everyone involved. Yet an Omega Maid had walked into his chamber, ignored every order he gave her, removed what no physician could remove, and somehow given him the first peaceful sleep he could remember. A soft knock sounded at the main doors. Nathaniel's expression hardened. Emily stirred. His arm tightened instinctively around her shoulders, and she relaxed again. The doors opened carefully. The royal physician entered first, followed by Commander Daniel Reeves. Both men stopped when they saw the king awake. "Your Majesty," the physician whispered. Nathaniel raised one finger to his lips. The two men exchanged a look that Nathaniel chose to ignore. The physician approached within several feet and studied Emily without touching her. "How do you feel?" "Rested." The physician looked almost offended by the simplicity of the answer. "After 12 years?" "Apparently." His gaze moved to Emily. "And Miss Carter?" Nathaniel looked down at her. "Still cold." The physician checked from a careful distance, then nodded slowly. "Her breathing is steady. Whatever transferred to her appears dormant while she remains close to you." Commander Reeves folded his arms. "The council will arrive within the hour. They believe you returned because of the northern negotiations. Then they will learn otherwise." "And the maid?" Nathaniel's gaze sharpened. "Her name is Emily." Reeves immediately lowered his head. "Of course." The physician glanced toward the two of them again. "There is something else. During the night, while you were both sleeping, I monitored your heart rates." Nathaniel waited. They synchronized. The room became very quiet. "Explain." "I cannot. Not yet. But every time Miss Carter's pulse weakened, yours changed with it. Every time yours steadied, hers followed." Nathaniel looked down at Emily. Something ancient moved quietly beneath his thoughts. Not the curse, not pain, but recognition. His wolf knew before he did. A word rose from somewhere deeper than reason. "Mate." Nathaniel said nothing. Outside the chamber, distant footsteps began filling the royal corridor. The council had arrived early. Emily stirred against him as voices approached the doors. Nathaniel felt her fingers tighten around his shirt. Then Margaret Voss's unmistakable voice sounded from the hallway, demanding entrance. Nathaniel looked toward the doors, his expression turning cold. Whatever the council was about to discover, one thing had already become certain. No one was taking Emily away from him. The chamber doors opened before anyone inside could stop them. Margaret Voss entered first, followed by several members of the Royal Council, all dressed for a meeting they believed would determine the future of the Northern Territories. Their voices died at once. Emily remained asleep against Nathaniel's chest, unaware that some of the most powerful people in the kingdom were staring at her as though the world had shifted while they slept. Commander Daniel Reeves moved toward the doorway. The king has not called the council to order. We were told His Majesty had returned, Councilman Richard Hale said. The border situation cannot wait. Nathaniel said nothing. His attention remained on Emily, whose breathing had changed slightly when the doors opened. The noise was disturbing her. His expression cooled. Margaret recovered from her shock before anyone else. Emily Carter. She spoke the name sharply. Emily stirred. Nathaniel's arm tightened around her shoulders. Lower your voice. Margaret stopped. Every council member looked at the king. She swallowed. Your Majesty, that girl is a servant. She has no right to be in this chamber, much less. Her eyes moved toward Emily, but she seemed unable to finish the sentence. She entered the royal wing against direct orders. Margaret continued. She abandoned her duties and deceived the guards. Whatever explanation she gave you, she has violated palace rules. Nathaniel looked at her with an unreadable calm. She also saved my life. Silence settled over the chamber. Richard Hale turned toward the royal physician. Is that true? Yes. The physician gestured toward the sealed moon-silver fragment. Miss Carter removed the source of His Majesty's condition after every medical attempt failed. Margaret's face tightened. Then perhaps we should ask how an untrained Omega Maid knew what royal physicians did not. Emily shifted again. Her fingers tightened faintly against Nathaniel's shirt. Margaret saw it. Something like humiliation crossed her face, quickly replaced by anger. She stepped forward. This has gone far enough. Emily must wake and explain herself. Nathaniel's gaze lifted. No. Margaret hesitated. Your Majesty? You heard me. But the council is waiting. Then the council can continue waiting. No one in the room seemed prepared for that answer. Margaret glanced at the nobles behind her, perhaps hoping one of them would support her. No one did. She took another step and reached toward Emily's shoulder. Nathaniel's voice stopped her before her hand came close. Do not touch her. Margaret froze. I only intend to wake her. The room became completely still. Nathaniel looked at the hand suspended above Emily, then slowly raised his eyes to Margaret's face. Wake the Omega Maid on my chest, and you die. The warning was spoken so quietly that no one mistook it for anger. It was certainty. Margaret immediately stepped backward. Nathaniel looked around the chamber. Does anyone else have difficulty understanding me? No one answered. Emily slept on. She had no idea that the woman who had spent years reminding her to know her place was now standing 10 feet away, afraid even to speak above a whisper. She did not see the council members exchange astonished looks. She did not see the royal physician watching Nathaniel with growing recognition. The moment had already happened once in Nathaniel's mind during the night, when Emily had stood before him trembling and refused to leave him alone. Now the balance had reversed. She had protected him when everyone else had been too afraid to enter. He would protect her while she was too exhausted even to know she needed it. Then Emily moved. Her eyes slowly opened. She became aware first of warmth, then of the steady heartbeat beneath her ear, then of the terrible silence surrounding her. She lifted her head. 12 council members were staring at her. Margaret looked horrified. Emily slowly looked down at the arm around her shoulders. Then she looked up into Nathaniel's silver-gray eyes. All the color left her face. Oh no, she whispered. Emily moved so quickly that the room tilted around her. She tried to stand, but Nathaniel kept one steady hand at her shoulder before she could lose her balance. Slowly, he said. Emily stared at the council, then at Margaret, then down at her wrinkled gray uniform. Memory returned in pieces. The hidden staircase. The forbidden chamber. The moon silver. Nathaniel falling asleep. After that, nothing. Your Majesty, I am so sorry. She immediately lowered her head. I did not mean to fall asleep here. I should return downstairs. She tried to step away. Cold rushed beneath her ribs. Emily stopped with a quiet gasp. Nathaniel was beside her before anyone else reacted, his hand closing gently around hers. The cold faded almost instantly. Every person in the chamber noticed. "You are not going downstairs," he said. Emily looked at their joined hands, then quickly at him. "But my duties can be assigned to someone else." Margaret found her voice. "Your Majesty, with respect, palace order cannot be overturned because one servant ignored her station." Nathaniel turned toward her. Ignored her station? Margaret seemed to realize too late that she had chosen the wrong words. Nathaniel rose, keeping Emily close enough that the strange cold remained quiet. "Last night, my guards remained outside because I ordered them to. My physicians left because there was nothing more they believed they could do. My council did not even know I had returned." His gaze moved across the room. No one interrupted him. Emily Carter knew none of the risks. She had no training, no authority, and no reason to believe helping me would earn her anything. Emily's face warmed as every eye turned toward her. Nathaniel continued. "Yet she was the only person who walked through that door." Margaret lowered her gaze. Emily shook her head. "I was not brave." Nathaniel looked at her. "No, I was terrified." Something softened in his expression. "Then why did you stay?" Emily could feel the entire room waiting for her answer. She wished he had asked anything else. She looked toward the fireplace, remembering him standing alone beside it, ordering her to run while his own pain echoed inside her chest. "Because you were hurting." Nathaniel waited. Emily swallowed. "And because you were more afraid of frightening everyone else than you were worried about yourself." The council became silent in a different way. Not shocked now. Listening. Emily met his eyes. "I was afraid of you. I just thought you were in more pain than I was afraid." Nathaniel stared at her for a long moment. His wolf went completely still. Somewhere beneath years of duty, isolation, and distrust, something shifted. Not because she had obeyed him. She had done almost nothing he asked. Not because she wanted his power. She had tried to return to her work the moment she woke. She had simply seen suffering and walked toward it. "Emily," he said quietly, "look at me." She did. "You will never apologize to me for saving my life." Her eyes widened. "And no one in this castle will punish you for it." His gaze moved toward Margaret. The meaning was unmistakable. Margaret bowed her head. "Of course, Your Majesty." Nathaniel turned to Commander Reeves. "I want a complete account of how Miss Carter has been treated since entering my household." Emily looked startled. "That is not necessary. I will decide what is necessary." Then he paused. "Although I am beginning to suspect you will argue with me about that too." A few council members looked away to hide surprised smiles. Emily almost smiled herself. Then the royal physician stepped closer. His expression erased the brief warmth from the room. "Your Majesty, there is a problem." He held a small crystal instrument near Emily without touching her. Its pale surface had begun to darken. Nathaniel's hand tightened around hers. "What problem?" The physician looked directly at Emily. "The curse is no longer dormant." Cold suddenly spread beneath her ribs. Emily's breath caught. Nathaniel felt her fingers weaken in his hand. The physician's face turned grave. "It is waking up." The cold moved through Emily so suddenly that the chamber seemed to disappear around her. Her fingers tightened around Nathaniel's hand, but this time his warmth did not make the sensation vanish completely. "Emily." His voice reached her through the strange distance. She focused on him. Silver gray eyes. Steady hand. The same heartbeat she had followed through 3 floors of stone. "I am all right," she whispered. The royal physician shook his head. "No, you are not." Nathaniel's expression hardened. "Then tell me how to stop it." The physician looked toward the sealed moon-silver fragment. "I need time." "How much?" "I do not know." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Emily felt the frustration in him before she saw it. The connection between them had changed. Last night, she had felt only his pain. Now she sensed something deeper beneath his controlled silence. Fear. Again, not for himself. For her. "Everyone out," Nathaniel said. Richard Hale stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the Northern Council." "Can wait." No one argued. Within moments, the chamber emptied until only Nathaniel, Emily, and the royal physician remained. Margaret was the last to leave. She looked back once at Emily, but whatever she intended to say died beneath Nathaniel's gaze. The doors closed. Emily released a breath she had not realized she was holding. "You did not have to send them away. You do not like being watched." She blinked. "How do you know that?" "You spent the entire morning trying to disappear while 12 people stared at you." Despite the cold inside her, Emily almost smiled. Nathaniel turned to the physician. Find every record concerning Moonsilver transfer. Wake every scholar in the Citadel if necessary. Yes, Your Majesty. And tell no one outside this room what happened. The physician bowed and left. Silence returned. Emily looked down at their joined hands. You should deal with your council. No. The kingdom cannot stop because of me. It is not stopping. You postponed a war meeting. I have postponed worse things for less important reasons. Emily looked up. The words seemed to surprise Nathaniel almost as much as they surprised her. For one quiet moment, neither spoke. Then the cold tightened beneath her ribs again. Emily pressed her free hand to her chest. Nathaniel immediately stepped closer. Tell me what you feel. Cold. Anything else? She listened inwardly. Beneath her own heartbeat was something unfamiliar, a distant echo that did not belong to her. Yet beside it was Nathaniel's pulse, steady and impossibly clear. 2 heartbeats, she whispered. His expression changed. Yours and mine. Emily nodded. Nathaniel lifted their joined hands slightly. And when I move away? He took one careful step backward. The cold sharpened immediately. Emily inhaled. Nathaniel returned before she could speak. Warmth spread through her again. His wolf stirred inside him, not with anger, but recognition. The same word returned with greater certainty. Mate. This time, Nathaniel could no longer dismiss it as exhaustion. Emily searched his face. What is it? He hesitated. A king accustomed to giving commands suddenly seemed unsure how to speak one simple truth. My wolf recognizes you. Emily went still. She understood what those words meant in their world, but understanding did not make them believable. That is impossible. Last night, I would have agreed. Nathaniel looked down at her with an expression she had never seen from anyone in Blackwood Citadel. Not pity, not judgment, recognition. I will not make promises for a bond neither of us understands. I will not decide your future for you. But until we know what this curse has done, you will not face it alone. Emily's eyes burned with sudden emotion. She looked away before he could see too much. Why? Nathaniel's answer came without hesitation. Because you did not leave me alone. Before Emily could respond, the sealed moonsilver fragment across the room gave off a faint silver glow. Both of them turned. The crystal cover began to cloud from within. Then Emily's heartbeat missed one beat. Nathaniel felt it through their connection. His face went still. The royal physician rushed back through the doors, an ancient book held tightly in his hands. Your Majesty, I found the record. He looked at Emily, breathing hard from the stairs. The curse cannot survive in 2 hosts. By the next moonrise, it will choose one. Nathaniel's hand closed more firmly around hers. Outside the windows, the last clouds were already moving away from the morning sky. The physician lowered his voice. You have until tonight. Emily had saved the Alpha King before dawn. Now Nathaniel Blackwood had less than 1 day to save her.